Now that 2024 is over, it's safe to say this year was not that great for movies. Financially, unless you were Deadpool or Inside Out 2. This year gave us some of the biggest box office bombs in a minute. Some of these movies definitely deserved to flop, while others really didn't. But let's kick off with the superhero bombs, because there were quite a few this year. I think we all know by now the biggest superhero flop of 2024 was Joker Baguette Adu. Now, when this movie was announced to be a musical, I was one of the few who thought this could work if they do it right. But that didn't happen, and what we got was one of the sloppiest movies thrown together with musical numbers that, while looking cool, didn't progress the story at all. On top of it just being worse than the original. I didn't see this movie in theaters because Butterducks warned me about how bad this movie was. So I waited for it to come on to HBO, and
fuck you, kid.
It was certainly a bad movie, but the budget for this movie was $200 million, and this grossed $206 million, but lost anywhere from $150 million to $200 million. Fucking ouch. But moving on from DC, we got Sony, who gifted us with two bombs, with the biggest of the bombs being Kraven the Hunter, which I have had the unfortunate displeasure of seeing. And this movie is certainly up there with some of the worst I've seen. Now, Kraven's budget was $110 million to $150 million, and this movie grossed $61 million and lost Sony somewhere between $50 million to $70 million. Damn. With this movie also finally putting an end to this weird and very bad Sony Spider-Verse. But time for the Madam Web movie, where the lead actress actively talks shit about how bad this movie is, which says a lot considering she did 3 50 Shades movies. And yeah, she definitely told us about the quality of the movie. Now, this movie had a budget of $80 million to maybe $120 million because of reshoots. The movie grossed $51 million and lost Sony $25 million. So yeah, not exactly a great year for superhero movies unless you were Deadpool. Now, on the other hand, a lot of the video game projects were really good. We got the Fallout TV show, Arcane Season 2, which me and Butter covered on his channel, and no, this totally isn't a subtle plug. Oh yeah, and Sonic 3 came out. While these projects were great and being praised, the same couldn't be said for the Borderlands movie. That was panned by critics and the audience, and also lost a lot of money. Now, I haven't seen this movie, and I can't say anything about how faithful of an adaptation it is, because I haven't played any of the games. But from a couple of people I know that have played the games and watched the movie, it wasn't that great of an adaptation either. But now it's time to find out how much this movie lost. So the budget for this was $115 million, and we actually have the marketing cost for this, which was $30 million. So in total, $145 million budget, and this film grossed $31 million, causing this movie to lose over $115 million. Guys, what happened here? Does anyone remember Argyle? You know, the spy movie with a cat? Because I sure didn't. But apparently this movie had a ridiculously high budget of $200 million, with some sources saying $250 million, which kinda makes me wonder why a film like this needed that high of a budget. Was it because of the A-list actors? Yes, it was 100% because of the A-list actors. Now, this movie grossed $96.1 million, and unfortunately there isn't a clear amount of money this lost, but to give you a rough idea of how much this film lost, for a film with a budget of $200 million, it needs to make around $500 million to break even. So yeah, a pretty big loss. Another one of the more forgotten flops that flopped was Fly Me to the Moon. I kind of wanted to see this, but you know, it's on Apple TV and it's one of the streaming services I don't have, and I am not paying just so I can watch one movie that I have the littlest bit of interest in seeing. But this movie had a $100 million budget and made $42.2 million. And once again, there isn't a set amount of money, but in order for this film to break even, it would have needed about $250 million. So yeah, another big loss. Now, one of the movies I saw a lot of hype for when the trailers were releasing was Megalopolis. This one felt like The Creator, where there was a lot of hype around it and then it just disappeared from the public eye in a couple of weeks. Then released, and it didn't do good at all. The film had a budget of $120 million and only grossed $13.9 million. There is also not a clear amount it lost, but to break even, this film would have needed $300 million to break even, so yeah, not a great time to be Megalopolis. And also, I didn't think it was possible to be a bigger forgotten flop than Argyle, but I was proven wrong. But I figured I can't talk about these flops without talking about movies that I think shouldn't have flopped. I think one of the films that really didn't deserve to flop was Fall Guy. Yeah, I know it's not the best by any means, but it was a pretty dumb, fun popcorn movie. But the film lost $51 million, and I think the reason this bombed so hard was due to the trailers kind of painting it as a generic action movie, which you can kind of tell just from looking at the trailers. But I don't think it really deserved a flop. But this one actually hurts, because this was my favorite movie of last year. It's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, this film had a budget of $60 million, but grossed $27.3 million. There isn't a set amount of money that it lost, but for the film to break even, it needed $150 million. So yeah, it was a flop, and from what I read, it's because it had limited releases, and people thought the story was taken up too much by fun action pieces, which I can't understand, but I still like this a lot. But that's all I have for you. I am curious to see if 2025 is gonna give us some even bigger flops, but I guess until then, I hope you've enjoyed. Take care and peace.